So Speak Up at School is one of our most popular publications at Teaching Tolerance. It's free for you to all access on our Teaching Tolerance website. So if you go to tolerance.org, we'll show you momentarily how to get there. But be sure to download this. It's really wonderful. The Teaching Tolerance Advisory Board that Julie and I are a part of is a national group of anti-bias educators who help Teaching Tolerance stay rooted in the real experiences and diverse perspectives of school communities across the country. Members of the advisory board are not simply devoted to social justice. They teach, counsel, and care for students in schools across the country every day. We give Teaching Tolerance feedback on new resources by sharing our expertise and practice, and help program staff anticipate important trends and changes in the field. As members of this select group of educators, we grow professionally by networking with board colleagues. We participate in the development of new projects, and then most importantly, we are ambassadors for the Teaching Tolerance mission. Each advisory board serves for a 2-year term. The current term ends in 2021, when we'll accept applications for a new board.
All right. So Teaching Tolerance is the education arm of the Southern Poverty Law Center and is a project that was founded in 1991 to prevent the growth of hate. It began with the publishment of Teaching Tolerance magazine and producing films chronicling the modern civil rights movement. So today our community includes more than 500,000 educators who read our magazine, screen our films, visit our website, participate in Mix It Up at Lunch Day, use our curriculum, or participate in our social media community. We view tolerance as a way of thinking and feeling, but most importantly of acting, that gives us peace in our individuality, respect for those unlike us, the wisdom to discern humane values, and the courage to act upon them. Teaching Tolerance provides free resources to educators, and educators use our materials to supplement the curriculum, to inform their practices, and to create civil and inclusive school communities where children are respected, valued, and welcome participants. Our website was redesigned recently, and it currently houses 600 diverse texts, lessons, and activities at all levels of education.
And then the Southern Poverty Law Center, where Teaching Tolerance is housed, has 3 pillars. The first one is fighting hate. The SPLC monitors hate groups and other extremists throughout the US and exposes their activities to law enforcement agencies, the media, and the public. The second pillar is Teaching Tolerance. The SPLC knows we don't achieve equality and justice through the courts and investigative reporting alone. The future of our great country lies in the hands of today's young people. The third pillar is seeking justice. The SPLC uses the courts and other forms of advocacy to win systemic reforms on behalf of victims of bigotry and discrimination.
So Teaching Tolerance is so much more than that magazine. Their website holds a vast and deep collection of resources, and all you need to do to access this information is to create a free account. So we'll be leading a session tomorrow that will give an overview of the materials that can be found on the website. But for today, we're going to focus in on the Speak Up at School publication. So to access that, you'll go to the website and then go to Magazine and Publications tab, and there will be a drop-down menu. And from there, you'll click on Publications. And then here, you will find all the publications that you have access to on the Teaching Tolerance website, including Speak Up at School. You can print a PDF copy of this publication, as well as access the professional development materials that are associated with it. You could also bookmark this page to refer back to it later. The professional development materials that go with this include a webinar and a step-by-step guide for sharing and discussing these materials with a group.
So today we are going to focus on 3 main objectives. The first one is to define and identify biased language in order to recognize it in your school setting. The second objective is to obtain tools and strategies to prepare you to speak up against prejudice, bias, and stereotypes. And our final objective is to know how to prepare your students to speak up against prejudice, bias, and stereotypes. As we get started, it's important for us to have a unified understanding of what biased language means. So what exactly is biased language? If you all could, in the group chat, go ahead and type in some answers of what you think biased language is. And then Julie, you can go ahead and maybe read just a few of them.
Yeah. So hate speech, those students, those in parentheses, one-sided and opinionated, language that reveals particular prejudices, language that marginalizes others, generalizes, language that promotes a stereotype. Yep, I am not the problem. Us versus them. Yeah.
Thank you. Thanks, everyone. So biased language, according to Teaching Tolerance, is very similar. It includes slurs, put-downs, negative labels, and jokes that rely on stereotypes. It starts early with a child being called four eyes or a boy being made fun of for playing with dolls. It continues on to include words that you see on this screen.
So it's easy to freeze up in the moment when we hear biased language, and it's good to have some responses and strategies ready so that you're prepared. We have 4 simple strategies you can use to make a safe environment for everyone. There's interrupt, question, educate, and echo. Let's take a look at these one at a time and see how we can apply them to everyday situations. So the first one is interrupt. Teachers and administrators from all grade levels and parts of the country emphasize this point. You must speak up against every biased remark every time it happens. Letting one go and then speaking up against the next one sends an inconsistent message that sometimes bias is okay and other times it isn't. We have to interrupt it every time in the moment without exception. So here are some quick responses you can have on hand to interrupt in the moment. You could say something like, I don't like words like that, or that phrase is hurtful. The next strategy we'll go over is question. Simple questions are another great way to interrupt biased language. Questions place the burden on the person who made the remark. So when faced with having to explain a joke or support a stereotype, sometimes people find themselves at a loss. Some of the questions you could ask in this situation are, why did you say that? Or what do you mean? Will you tell me more? These are things that I personally use quite a bit. Again, that reflects the comment back on the person who made it, and it makes them actually consider what they're saying. And tone really matters with these questions. Your goal when asking these questions is to understand the root of the speaker's prejudice and then help them add context and information to dispel those prejudices. The question should be stated in a gentle but clear manner because your goal is to keep the conversation going and not shut it down.
The next strategy that we'll discuss is educate. Not all biased language stems from hate, and sometimes ignorance or a lack of exposure to diverse populations is at the root. And other times, people might not know the negative power behind the biased language they are using. A good first step in this moment, particularly if it's the first time you've encountered it with someone, is to explain why the term or phrase is offensive. If you personally don't know the history of the word, you can look it up together. You can investigate how it evolved into a word that expresses bias, prejudice, and discrimination. And then our 4th and final strategy is echo. Being the first one to speak up is powerful. Being the 2nd, 3rd, or 4th voice to join the interruption is also extremely powerful. When someone in a group setting has said something biased and not 1 but 4 people speak up, the echoing power of these voices can have multiplying effects. You can reiterate the anti-bias message, or you can thank the first person for speaking up, or you could really do both. You might say, for example, thanks for speaking up. I agree that word is offensive and we shouldn't use it.
Throughout the webinar, we're going to watch a series of videos, and these videos give us scenarios that might be pretty common to some experiences that you've had. The more we practice these in the moment kind of scenarios, the more prepared we'll be when a real one happens. We're only going to play them once because, in all honesty, in real life, you're going to only hear the comments once. These videos are 15 seconds long and will go quickly, so make sure your volume's up on your computer at home so you can hear them. So here is the first video. Our goal for this video is to analyze the teacher who spoke in front of the student.
I didn't know what to say. I overheard another teacher commenting to a student, "Those earrings look a little ghetto." I didn't know what to say.
So we're going to think about those 4 strategies: interrupt, question, educate, or echo, that you might apply. This teacher said she overheard another teacher commenting to a student about her earrings, and she said, "Those earrings look ghetto," and she didn't know what to say. So let's use the chat box again and list the strategy that you would use along with what you might say. And the strategies are there on the side to help you remember. Strategy, and what would you say? How would you respond? Okay, why would you say that? Yep, a lot of people questioning. What do you mean by that term? Good, yep, we could do some educating. Great. Yeah, interrupting, saying, "Whoa, do you know the history of that?"
As long as we're remembering the tone in what we say, you're good to go. The tone, for me personally, I have a hard time with tone when I get really mad about what someone is saying. So we just have to be careful about that. But
yeah. Keep the conversation going. Yeah.
Should we go to the next slide, Julie?
Yes.
Okay.
So in this next video, we have a female student wondering how to respond to a comment from another student.
I didn't know what to say. During group work, I overheard a boy say to a girl, "Stop PMSing and just take your notes, okay?" And I didn't know what to say.
So how could the teacher educate her students in this situation about sexist stereotyping? Remember our 4 strategies: interrupt, question, educate, echo, and which one would you use? And again, what would you say? So let's go ahead and put some ideas in the chat box. Yes, educating, interrupt, then educate. Yes, we can combine, use multiple strategies.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, why would you say that? If you're remembering our tone. "Oh, I'm not comfortable." Yes, with that kind of language. I don't like that. Go ahead, Amy.
I'd like to add one thing that I haven't heard yet, is can we pause this conversation for a minute? Something that you said is resonating with me, or something that you said I'm having some trouble with, I'm questioning. So you're kind of stopping the conversation and you're allowing for that biased remark to come up, and then it kind of stops and focuses in on that conversation. So that could be another idea.
And it buys you a little bit of time in deciding how you do want to respond, or maybe to tone your frustration or anger down.
Yes. All right, I think we can go to the next one.
Yeah, we have one more scenario. We'll just go ahead and play.
I didn't know what to say. Last week at a staff meeting, the principal told us some students from nearby trailer park would be attending a different school next year. Some teachers cheered. I didn't know what to say.
So picture yourself in this staff meeting. A teacher makes an announcement that kids from a certain trailer park or neighborhood are being relocated to another school. A group of teachers cheer. What would you say? And again, what strategy would you use? Looks like people are already typing. Yep, go ahead. And yep, someone said that has happened. Yes. Good. Questioning. I don't understand. Why are you cheering? Yep, I'm sorry to hear that. Yep. Yeah, asking the leader, the principal. Why are you cheering? Why are we excited? Yeah, what a shame, as we're here to teach all kids. Yeah, tell me more about your reaction, opening up the conversation.
Yeah, I like what you just said, Julie, about opening up the conversation. There's a large body of work out there about calling in a conversation versus calling out or shutting down a conversation. So these strategies are really meant to continue a conversation so that the person making the biased remarks learns that they're biased. Excellent. So we've just gone through some very important strategies that will help you to interrupt bias. There are several additional things that you can do to ensure you are ready to respond. We asked you before to answer how much you have spoken up when a biased situation is in front of you. Now, I think we all knew how to answer that question, right? So most of us said that we speak up most of the time. However, if we dig deeper into that thought and your personal conversation with that, I bet, can all say that there have been times when we haven't said anything. So let's make a commitment to ourselves. Be prepared by having phrases handy to use when you are in the moment. I personally have phrases posted, and I have them in my academic planner, and I keep them with me at all times. You could do something like that. You could post our pocket guide that you saw in an earlier presentation. That's available online and free. You can post that in a high traffic area or near your desk. So basically, be positive when confronting bias in a proactive way rather than a reactive way. It's much easier to use strategies proactively in the moment rather than in a reactive way later on. Being confident is also really important. Practicing scenarios like we have done will help you with your confidence. There are many more videos on our website. Being confident also goes along with not being apologetic. You are confronting bias, which will help reduce prejudice, stereotypes, and racism. There is absolutely nothing to apologize for. And finally, encouragement is essential as a commitment. It is hard work, yet essential work to confront bias. It's scary to confront bias, especially if the other person in the situation is your boss, a good friend, or maybe even a relative. You need to find your allies. You need to encourage each other. We are in this together. So it's extremely important to find your power in numbers, which is why the ECHO strategy is a key strategy to utilize. If you're ever able to come to visit the Southern Poverty Law Center, and I realize how truthful that sounds, like if you are ever able to come down to Alabama in Montgomery, there is a civil rights museum across the street from the SPLC that has an exhibit that allows members to sign a commitment saying, I will make a stand against prejudice and hate when I hear it. You could very easily recreate this implementation strategy using a bulletin board in your school setting that allows students to sign it with their commitment to take a stand against bias, prejudice, and hate. You may also want to allow family members and friends to sign when visiting. So something very easy.
So there's also a pocket guide that you can print, fold up, and put right in your pocket to remind you of the 4 strategies, along with some helpful phrases. Amy and I have used this pocket guide with English language learners, specifically when we've had students that receive negative comments about their race, culture, or ethnicity. We pulled them together along with some key support staff in our building and had a Q&A session about what they could do. This pocket guide was given to them so that they could have some ideas on how to respond to the language that they were hearing about themselves.
So Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. said, in the end, we will remember not the words of our enemies, but the silence of our friends. Let's apply this to our presentation. In situations where you are the target of biased language, what hurts most is when the people around you are silent. Let's remind ourselves to always be those friends and teachers and educators and principals who speak up. One final note we have for you is to reflect back on the visuals that we've used within our presentation, much like the one that we have on this slide. These are all posters that are free to download from the Teaching Tolerance website. So yet another free tool, which is amazing. We hope that you feel as though you have more tools in your toolbox to confront biased language. It's incredibly important that we interrupt bias each and every time that we hear it. So thank you for participating in this Speak Up at School presentation today. We are really glad to have been welcomed by the ILC as guest presenters for this series. Please don't hesitate to reach out to us if you have any further questions about this publication. Thank you so much.